Hi, good morning from Chennai. Hi everyone. Hi Mahalakshmi. Hey Uma. So we're going to be in conversation with V. Balakrishnan on his new play, Margazhi. Invitation to join. So welcome everyone to this discussion on the play. We've titled this session, The Act of Creating Margazhi. Hey Bala.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Bala, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, great. I can hear you as well. So, firstly, welcome Bala. And I just managed to watch the play yesterday. Really interesting, and I'm hoping to have a conversation with you pertaining to some aspects that really struck me very, very interesting to the play. So, thank you for agreeing to be in conversation.
Thank
Just for
you.
the benefit of those who probably not heard about the play yet or who haven't watched it, Margazhi is a play that traces the life of a Bharatanatyam dancer and the turmoil of the exploitative culture that dictates the quest for dancers to achieve awards, accolades, scholarships, and worthy stages to perform on. For a while now, actually, activists and illustrators, have been documenting and calling out this culture. But for a change to happen, I was thinking about it. It is crucial that we listen, see, engage with work like this more and more. So we recognize that things are firstly not okay, and that we have to really come together cohesively and collectively for any sort of change to happen. And also I think it's sort of reassuring in some sense to also see that it's not a singular struggle, and it's when it's articulated in the form of a play, it's also the possibility of sort of reinforcing that this is a collective struggle, right? Just for those who don't know, V. Balakrishnan is an alumnus of the Sri Ram Center for Performing Arts, Delhi, and National School of Drama, founder and artistic director of Theatre Nisha, that has staged over 120 plays in the past 21 years in over 15 international, national, regional theatre festivals. Bala has to his credit a host of awards and accolades, and I'm not going to be actually getting into that, except I'm going to say that in 2019, Bala won the Hindu Playwright Award for his play Sordid that was staged recently and which premiered at the Natarani Amphitheatre in March 2020. His latest play, Arundhati, a homage to Girish Karnad, was shortlisted for the Sultan Padam C Playwriting Award 2020 as well. So Bala, thank you for all that you do, for all the scripts that you write, for the the courage and the conviction that you write them. So I'm going to start off by asking you that, in a certain way, writing a script like this also calls for a great amount of courage and conviction. It's also a certain way like assuming the voice and role of an activist and someone who recognizes that the arts has the power to call out and therefore in some sense to transform. Firstly, as an artist yourself, why do you think a voice like this is crucial for the arts?
I think this voice is crucial for everyone to raise as and when required. Every person in this social order needs to be able to facilitate raising their voices as and when it is required. Art, it gives us a very powerful conduit. It creates for us a very powerful platform where we are able to discuss, talk, negotiate, raise questions, become aware, lead towards awareness because of this platform that we have. So in that sense, this social responsibility, which as members of a society, all of us need to have, I think as artists, it kind of doubles up. So in that sense, whatever we are attempting to create, whatever sensory perceptions of ours we are trying to articulate, I think it's very important that it does bear with it that that weight, that historical weight of social responsibility also.
Right. No, absolutely. And you have consciously done that, right, Bala? Over the years, you've written a lot about, issues and concerns. Even Sordid was a very, very important idea that you sort of addressed upon. Would you say that in the context of dance, this would be like one of your first?
As far, I mean, like using dance as the main metaphor of a script, I would say yes. This is the first time I have done that. Yeah.
Right. Do you want to recall a little bit about how this idea really came about? How did it plant yourself? Have you been thinking about it for a while? I do know that you work a lot with dance and dancers. So I want to ask you a little bit about like, how did this idea, how do ideas actually happen? Do they happen over a series of conversations that you have with your team? Or does an idea just come and plant itself in your head and then you start conversing with people? So I'm just curious about how Margazhi happened.
I think it has been 27 years in the making, the entire length of my presence on the stage. And I think it starts for me right from the time when I finished at the National School of Drama. And because of particular issues, I had to make a move to Chennai to start my theater career. And this has been fed in through different periods of time. And I remember at one time I had this young student of 19 years old, a wonderful upcoming musician. And I asked her one day the jaded, inevitable question. So how many programs do you have in the season this time? And she said that, I don't know, maybe I'll do one or two. I have this afternoon slot in this mini hall. I said, why, what happened? You were looking for something. She said, I went with my mother to meet this person to discuss the slotting. And this person was very nice. They talked very well. And after I reached home, I got a call. And this person said, why did you come and meet me in the evening without your mother? And let's discuss this. And she said, Bala, this person is older than my father. He is like 65 or whatever. And she's 19 years old. I mean, I'm not saying age is any criteria here. But she said that I don't think I want to perform at all. At that moment, in front of my eyes, I witnessed the death of a musician. And this is one incident which was within me. So many stories, so many narratives, so many discussions with people, sometimes in a very flippant way, over a drink, people laughing and saying, hey, you heard what happened in that Cleveland festival, that guy, he misbehaved with the lady of the house and, they had to. So sometimes flippantly also, but they all stayed within, and somewhere it kind of articulated itself. And I felt that maybe the time has come to write this play for me to work with myself more than anything else.
No, that's so true. And I love the use of the word flippancy, Bala, I think now more than ever, so many statements that we have all in some ways made very casually, even these memes that you get, or, the husband-wife jokes, everything is problematic,
Yes,
right?
yes.
If you actually were to like break them down, you're like, this is not okay. And this whole concept of flippancy of just exchanging notes over a drink is not okay, because it's
not okay.
it's really, really loaded, and it sort of adds up, right? Absolutely. Bala, I just thought that while I just sort of in a one-liner defined what the play essentially is about, I just thought, can you quickly, just for the benefit of the audience, summarize the story of Margazhi, just for the benefit of the those who will watch it later as well?
About William Shakespeare's Hamlet, it is said that it is the story of a prince who could not make up his mind. I think Margazhi is the story of a dancer who made up her mind. I think that is what I would say. It's in one line. It is the story of a dancer who believes that all her hard work, all the sacrifices she has made, all her talent, etc., it has a culmination only if she gets to perform in a huge state and is recognized as a great dancer, is awarded, and all the peripheral things which come with it. That's her belief, maybe her mistaken belief. And that is what she decides to go after. So it's as simple as that. That is the story. And somewhere, because I believe that is not what we engage with the arts for. I mean, end of the day, the art is for our own individual improvement. It is for evolution. It is for communion. And the point at which we forget that and we start going towards awards and accolades and reviews and huge platforms, I think we are doing ourselves a great disservice. So I think that's what the story is about.
No, that's fantastic. Bala, I want to ask you a little bit about, what went into your research, right? I found that the play, because I mean, as Alap, I have worked closely with the world of dance and dancers. And so many of the things seemed very, very authentic. They were very real. They were like familiar. They were like, this person looks like, this thing, of course. So I want to ask you that, a little bit about research, like, the lines that you sort of, have written, the conversations. For instance, the scene where Vaidehi is crying because Akka is angry that she has had forgotten to mention her name. I mean, this is a scene between, I mean, I can't name who, but I have heard this. Another young dancer was once crying to me because she had forgotten to mention the name of her Akka. So these are things that really do happen. So I want to ask you a little bit about the research that went into this.
I although I did not deliberately set out to research anything, but it is the narratives of so many dancers over so many years. And I also found that these incidents are so repetitive that you have 4 or 5 dancers coming up and saying, hey, that's my story. You know, so 4 or 5 of them have the same story. And where they say that the words also sound the same. So this is a lot of true narratives. I would very openly say that every narrative mentioned in this play is a real narrative. Sometimes the words I have used in the play are not my words, but the way they were narrated or shared with me. But of course, every time a sharing happens, there is also an underline that, hey, it's not, I mean, I don't want my name to be associated with it. And I totally understand that, because so many of these dancers are in the field practicing, they still depend upon their akkas and annas and everyone else. And nor was I attempting to make this as a call out play or this play to be pointing a finger at one particular person. No, I think this is pointing a finger at ourselves, that it's time we stop, you know, putting the power in the hands of these people so they stop exploiting us. So the research for this was talking with lots of dancers. I had posed a question that I am writing a play which has been inspired by these incidents in my own life. Is there something you would like to share with me, which I would use definitely as references in my play? And many people, many friends had come forward and shared their narratives, which went into the play many times verbatim, the way it was spoken.
Fantastic. I think that's what makes it really so real and authentic. And in a certain way, actually, that was one of my questions, Bala, that you're not actually preaching or anything. You're actually, I feel that on a larger level, it's a commentary that you're sort of making. And I think it's also a play of resistance. You know, I feel like it's important for us to start resisting this, each of us to resist it, each of us to recognize these undercurrents and see whatever we can do to resist it. Even if not collectively, at least if individually we all do it, then I suppose collective change can perhaps happen. So I want to ask you a little bit about, this word akka. Bala, incidentally, on my personal page as well, I had written about the use of I don't know if you've got a chance to see that.
Yes.
And I wrote about how the word akka is problematic, and it was so, it was so heartwarming for me to see that entire akka scene, kind of pan out through the play actually. How this akka is like this silent figure that we don't see at all in the play, and who continues to have this this ghost who's kind of like trailing Vaidehi constantly and making her presence, her sort of, just in the word akka, it's just so loaded, right? So I want to ask you a little bit about why this word akka is so loaded and problematic. And also in the play, Bala, there is this constant like fear that Vaidehi has when she mentions akka. Like she's always a bit like nervous. She's like, tomorrow I have to meet akka. I don't think akka will approve. There is so much of this akka. I just want you to sort of comment on how you chose to kind of bring this akka in as a very, very invisible, but sort of a very dominating presence, so to speak.
I mean, in the North, in theater, we encounter the same word akka in a different way. You know, there is the concept of the dada. You know, calling elder, the dada, that you have to call them dada. You can't call them by their name. But for me, all these words like dada and akka were akin to, for me personally, it was akin to what we see in Bollywood movies of the bhai, the mafia don or somebody is called as the bhai, who holds control over their territory. You can work under the bhai, but you can't break away from the bhai unless the bhai decides to allow you to create your own territory. And somewhere I felt that this was absolutely similar sometimes to the use of this word. I mean, respect is something we give not for gray hair. Respect is something which is earned by people's actions. It is earned by what a person does. But to force somebody to respect someone because the other has gray hair or is on a better economic level or anything else, I have always felt extremely violated when I am supposed to do that. You know, even the use of the word sir and ma'am, I feel it is very ridiculous, and it's high time we started calling people by their names. I mean, that's why names exist. And if I need to give you additional respect, it's in my intent. It is the way I address you. And even if I choose to add a G or an Akka or an Anna, I do it by choice, by consent. I don't call you Akka because that is the title by which I'm supposed to. It's not the army where I'm supposed to behave in a certain way because you outrank me. This is the art. We need to work together there. So for me, it was like starting, it was a lot of fun. I used to make fun of my own sister. You know, I will keep making fun of the word Akka, etc. And sometimes when you see some videos where the student will be talking to the teacher and they will be using the word Akka in a very dramatic way, I used to make fun of it. But then I realized it's not something to make fun of because it's a very loaded word. And somewhere this culture of domination needs to take a step back, and it has to become a culture where we are working together. Of course, I respect you as my teacher, but not at gunpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I also really honestly started thinking about it like more recently, Bala, and I think that's the process, I suppose. Like, in a certain way, it's also a journey that all of us have to go through to recognize these words that are loaded and layered and problematic. And I think we can do whatever it takes to resist it in our own ways. We can tell the people around us who call us Akka, saying that at least free me.
Please don't
call me Akka, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Also, Bala, I want to ask you a little bit about this concept of existentialism, which is, I thought, you know, at the core of the play itself, because it's really this dancer's constant everyday struggle. Like, she has to contend with it on an everyday basis. It's not like, you know, it's like only while she has to get a slot, or only, it's like everyday existence is like, is it worth it? How do I negotiate it? How do I sort of stand with my shoulders almost always crouched? You know, like, there's always this sense of having to, you know, bend, you know, accept, be submissive, all of that, which come out really so beautifully. So I want to ask you a little bit about what I mentioned before, that in a certain way, by just articulating the story of one Vaidehi, you're actually telling the story of so many Vaidehis. And while it's great and reassuring that one Vaidehi feels like, okay, at least there are 10 other Vaidehis who are struggling like me, it's also important to realize that it's not okay, and there are so many people who are going through this. So I want you to talk a little bit about the concept of existentialism and how it sort of finds expression in the play.
I think for me, it was about talking about the concept of misplaced existentialism. That is, what is it that we have defined as what makes us live and exist? What is it that is required, what I believe, for my happiness? And it seems to be a line which has been laid down by history, that you do this, you do that, hence your life is successful. You know, starting from the very basic parenthood, where it is study well, get into a job, get married, and one day happily die in front of your grandchildren, it means you have lived a good life. I think we have never challenged these norms. To be an actor or an artist of any other sort also comes with this, you know, an hierarchical timeline laid out, that in order to be a good, if you are a good dancer, hey, where is your performance? When is the last time you got an evening slot? What makes you think you are a good dancer? There were only 7 people in the auditorium. So I think for a person like Vaidehi, it becomes very important to identify and define what makes Vaidehi live in the moment. What is happiness for Vaidehi? She mistakes, and I mean, that stoop which you were talking about, that baggage which she was carrying, that weight of it takes a decision which she thinks is going to liberate her, but it does not end up liberating her. It pushes her more into the chasm and abyss of despair, because that is never what she wanted. So when are we going to stop seeking validation from each other, validation from our peers? And why is it that as a society, we are again and again impressing that you need validation? How many likes? How many, how many people have seen your video? How many hearts? and that's how we are counting our success, happiness, etc. So it becomes a larger question of how we have re-identified this concept of existentialism. This is not the same that we were undergoing in the 1970s, you know, or even in the 60s. This is not what Beckett or Albee write about. There it was very different. It was universal. It was larger. And now it has become more stifling. It has become claustrophobic in a sense. And we are not able to break out of it because every second we are chaining ourselves more and more to things which enhance this need to be validated. I think that is a larger problem in that sense than just the problem of an artist seeking validation through a movie or a play or a dance performance.
Right. No, absolutely. You know, there are some recurring words, Bala, in the play, and I wanted to talk about that too. So some of the words that are recurring and are truly very, very problematic is the word slot. And I remember that always feeling very, very very disgusted with that word, slot. Right? Slot itself is like boxing somebody. Arrangement. That's a common word that finds, occurrence here. Arrangement. Awards. You know, like you rightly said, networking. And then she uses this word, the quintessential horizontal arrangement. Which is also like, oh my God, so problematic. And then the use of the word patron. Like everybody needs a patron. Like, and the fact that this bargain of reciprocity, you know, that is a really, really powerful word. And the fact that the arts is really about aesthetics, and dance is really seen as dancers are seen as just conduits of culture, right? I want you to talk a little bit about why words like these need to, Bala, recently I read a book on how to raise a feminist son by this author called Sonu Raja. I have a son and I was curious to kind of see, because, and she talked so much about how as educated women raising children, it is imperative that we do whatever it takes to rewrite existing narratives. That what was okay then is not okay now. And therefore, I also think that this play is particularly relevant because at a time when these words were perhaps constructed and used, it was perhaps okay. Or, you know, a bunch of people didn't resist it, right? Yeah. But it is about time we started at least engaging with these words and understanding why they're so loaded and why so problematic, and how can we rewrite these words, and how can we actually create a culture of like leveling, right, where these words are not like slot, arrangement. So would you like to talk a little bit about the choice of these words, Bala, in the play?
I think, again, most of these words which came up, they have been inspired by dialogues that I have engaged with in real life. Like, for example, the horizontal arrangement, this was something which I very specifically heard with respect to getting a PhD. So that is what I heard, that, PhD, that can be settled by the horizontal arrangement. Of course, I have borrowed it into this play, but I think it holds very true out here itself, that everywhere, what is it that I get if I give you this particular thing? Why? Because there are 100 people asking for the same thing. So for me, the usage of these words became pertinent to point out that if we take away the power from the hands of these people who are out there purely to exploit and serve their vested interests, we break the system. The point at which we start saying, I don't need an evening slot. I don't need that particular auditorium. I will dance here free of cost. I'll dance in your house. Maybe I'll dance on the terrace. I dance, and that creates a communion. I think then we will be on this voyage where each one of these words starts losing their negative connotations also. There is a glorification, a pseudo glorification of all these things. And once the pseudo glorification places each one of us artists in a so-called elevated position, is the time we are vulnerable to exploitation. You want to stay there, then this is what you pay for it. This is what you do. And this is something which is prevalent in literally every stream and field of this world. Take education, take cinema, take theater, anything. Absolutely. But for me, dance became an important metaphor in this because one, it was the amount of narratives I had received. And secondly, for me, dance is one of those fields which has maximum glorification. It's a celestial art, art of the gods. It's for the gods. We talk and sing only of gods, and so that is why everything becomes so elevated,
Elevated,
so
yeah.
that we place it on a humongous pedestal.
Yeah, like on this pedestal, right? Constantly. And I also noticed, like, also the other thing that I want to talk to you about is the whole body language of everybody there, right? The body language is such a powerful matter. Everybody is like the stoop, and everybody is, while they're waiting for the sandwiches to arrive, when
Yeah,
the
yes,
organizer, as always, is
yes,
like portrayed in bad
yes,
light, and that
yes.
I feel so bad because I'm not such a bad organizer. I'm like, oh my God, like, why is the organizer always being bullied?
Always.
But anyway, always. I want to ask you a question about that too, from the point of view of an organizer. But I also want to ask you, Bala, about the body language. And the body language, I think, like you rightly said, this whole thing about this whole idea of being elevated, and this whole notion of bhakti, which is like bhakti for the Lord, bhakti for the teacher, bhakti for whatever. And it's like almost like this whole thing of like if you look at the Sas Bahu, how it's been stereotyped. It's like
Yes.
the Sas Bahu keeps on, the exploitative culture is like, she harassed me, so I'll harass mine. Right?
Yes.
It's like that.
Yes.
So it's, in a certain way, this whole akka thing is like a cyclical problem then. When another
Yes.
becomes an akka, she's going to do the same thing.
Same thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
In fact,
yeah.
Please go ahead, Bala. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that something we see in the cinema culture also,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, like, the other notion is the notion of the hierarchy, right? Which is where the whole idea of of this in the context of slotting, you talk about senior, sub-senior, sub-junior. I mean, these hierarchies are also terribly like of a slotting sort of a culture, right? Which also,
True.
I suppose, puts a lot of pressure on dancers to kind of, which slot do I fit into, right? But speaking specifically about the organizer exploitation, Bala, I want to ask you a little bit about if it has continued to, if the exploitative culture has continued as is portrayed in the play, in a certain way, don't you think that the dancers have also been okay with allowing that culture to happen? So how is it that it's only this, like, while there are these exploiters that are portrayed, why is it that nobody has actually stood up and said no, right? So in a certain way, they have allowed for that exploitation to happen to them, right? So because there is something that they are gaining in terms of the awards and the accolades and the PhDs and all of that. So there is something that something's got to give, but there's something got to gain as well. So I want you to talk a little bit about that.
I think you use the correct word. It is allowed. If people were not allowing this, if they were not ready to put up with nonsense, it could never happen.
It would never have happened.
It's very easy also because we want to dance, and we believe that until and unless we dance or act or be in a movie which is with this person, etc., I don't get fulfilled. We believe that it is possibly something which completes a particular person, and I feel that is where we are wrong. That is where it has been fed into us that your completion is only if you do this. I believe that as a dancer or an artist, an actor, you are complete even if you are performing for 5 people in a small auditorium somewhere inside your house also. I think that is the true power of art, that it elevates us, that it empowers us and allows us to engage in a more strong way with others. I think somewhere we have tended to believe that until and unless my photograph is out there in the newspaper, there is a cutout, I have been given 35 awards, I haven't done anything in my life. And we make it our objective that I want these awards, I want to act with this person. And at that point, we tend to do whatever we wish. Fine. It is your personal decision that you chose to do whatever you wish. But by doing that, you opened up the gates for other people now to be suffering the same without their consent. Now it becomes like, oh, that is what happens. Oh, you want to do a play there, or you want a performance there? Oh, then this is what you will have to give. Ye to chalta hai. It's all part of the deal. You need to understand that. we have made it easy, simple, doesn't matter. Maybe we have also got desensitized to these acts, and it's like, okay, big deal, doesn't matter. I think the important thing is for us to realize why the arts. Why is it that we want to articulate our sensory perceptions? Why do we want to engage with people using craft and art, etc.? Is it for us to elevate our own selves and have our pictures put up somewhere? Or is it for a greater, stronger purpose of communal development, of us evolving together, etc.? I think that question needs to be answered. And if people feel that it is not for anything but personal glorification, I think then they should just be ready to stumble and fall and pick them up and keep moving with all the bruises.
No, absolutely. In fact, two people here say that if you say no, then you're out of the game, that you become unknown. And that is probably why people continue to say yes, Yeah, absolutely. Bala, I want you to talk a little bit about, just a couple of more questions because I know that Instagram people's attention spans on Instagram are also shrinking. So I want to keep the discussion short. I have many more questions, but I want to ask you a little bit about the role of the Sutradhar. Preeti Bharadwaj comes and there's this constant singing in the background. And does that singing also in a certain way become like an additional layer to the, what I felt already sort of turbulent sort of environment that permeates the play? Like, it seems like all is well because everybody is beautifully dressed and, wearing gorgeous saris and costume and all of that. But beneath that veneer, there is so many hidden, palpable undercurrents, right? So I want to ask you, what is the role of the Sutradhar in this whole thing, and the role of the music as well?
So whenever I used to watch Bharatanatyam performance, I used to get very angry that, the person usually doing the Natyavangam, they could reveal the entire plot. So they would say that next this is going to be done in this ragam. And then in this story, what happens is the Naika runs after, is asking the Lord, why are you resting? Are you tired because you were running after the deer, or you broke the bow? Yen Pallir Kondiraya and ragam, this. I'll be like, you have told me the entire plot. Why are you telling me the entire plot, laying it out? So I mean, as a youngster, I used to make fun of it. I'm sure it had its own reason. But I wanted that same thing to be created in the play, that each segment of the play is like a segment of a margam. And the Sutradhar before each segment is actually telling us about what follows in the play. So they don't reveal the plot in that sense, but there is a Kichaka Vadam, which tells us about what possibly is going to happen in the scene next. So that was more of just tying it stronger towards Bharatanatyam, So I wanted the entire thing to be created as if this entire play by itself is a Bharatanatyam performance, and there is a person who is anchoring it. And the fact that, whatever turbulence, turmoil, exploitation is happening, somewhere at the back, that ragam, the beat, it stays. The song is happening. Whatever happens to me, I am going to dance to the rhythm. I am going to be true to the song. I am going to be Draupadi and take revenge against Dushasan, even if whatever happened to me one day ago is not exactly that. So for me, this was, to place it in that Bharatanatyam setup is the reason why I chose to do that.
Yeah, I was also thinking, Bala, it's also a certain way of like this submission, right? Like whatever it is, I will submit to the system, which is what most people do, right? No matter the fact that that there are flaws aplenty, you kind of just flow with the system if you think you want to make it in the way that you perceive you want to make it, right? Obviously. Bala, I also want to ask you a little bit about the role of the Sakhi, the friend, I think played beautifully by Meera, right? I want to ask you a little bit about, and the role of the Sakhi in the context of dance. Of course, everybody knows that. I want to ask you a little bit about, you used her very, very intelligently to be there for this friend. And she's obviously this rebel, obviously somebody who's researching in the world of dance, but also has a streak of rebellion in her, unwilling to submit to, Vaidehi, who's with a stoop. And the Sakhi is always like standing tall and a bit more, that I don't want to fall prey to this whole system sort of a thing. So I want to ask you a little bit about this magic master stroke of having this Sakhi, and what role, and also the fact that why does everybody also need a friend like that, who shows you the mirror, and who also kind of is constantly there for you, who will kind of understand your angst, and who understands that the culture that you are in is really truly exploitative.
I wanted the Sakhi to be the fool to Vaidehi's Lear, you know, a person who is not afraid of calling a spade, and of even challenging Vaidehi that why don't you drop all this act of yours, you know. And at least with me, you talk like a human. Why are you putting on that very sacrosanct act of always also talking in a particular way, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was important for me. And I was also thinking, if Vaidehi needs to vent, who could that person be? I mean, she is a person who has decided to steer clear away from concepts of men, marriage, and etc. And who is it that she would be talking to? So that is where this person, this Sakhi kind of a person came out, who also is a person who is not scared to tell Vaidehi what is wrong and what is right. But at the same time, she never judges Vaidehi. When Vaidehi chooses and makes a decision, she is there to support her and stand by her. So maybe this is a person who is usually missing from all our lives. So it was just, maybe an yearning that all of us need one fool in our life to whom, you know, who can show us the reality as it stands, an objective picture.
No, absolutely. And for me, really the most endearing scene was the last scene where when she comes back and she's completely frazzled, you know, after she goes for this contemporary dance workshop and she loses guard and she comes to her, through the scene, Mira is just like, you know, like patting her back and like, you know, soothing her nerves and just sort of, and for me, that was a very, very poignant moment because this is about exploitation, not just on a physical level, on a financial level, on a mental level, but also on a serious emotional level, you know. And it's the coming together of exploitation on all levels that sort of really some days like that scene where Vaidehi completely is just almost like crumbling and feels like she's like left with bereft of all energy, right? And she often talks about that. And then there is this friend who kind of really is reassuring and tells her that, okay, you know, also allowing her the freedom to do what she wants, right?
Yes.
Bala, just talk to us. I don't know whether it's a good idea for me to ask you about the ending and how you've chosen to do it, because what do you think? Would you like to talk about it, or would you like for people to go watch the play and then have their own interpretation?
Like, I'm sure they can watch it and also arrive at where they feel, because per se this play never had an ending.
Yeah.
It is a ... in the sense of one does not know, it does not have a closure in that sense, because there's nothing for Vaidehi to go back from, nor do I want to show her as a heroine who takes a stand and you know, quits Bharatanatyam or opens up on these people in the newspapers or something, because those are not real life situations at all. So in the sense, so I just wanted to leave it open in the sense for us as we watch the play and engage with the play to maybe question ourselves, where do we place our own selves in these situations? Do we have the ability to say no when we want to say no, and yes when we want to say yes? Or do we always confuse the two? How long to seek validation? How long to get bogged down by peer pressure and everything else and succumb to this, you know, of wanting to fit in, wanting to belong to something, of catering to snob appeal? I think it was, for me, it was that end of the day, one person watches this play or two people, it has to be about an individual introspection. It has to be about what is it for me? And if that can be done, I think for me, writing the play has been a great success. If people can raise that question within themselves. But more of it, yes, I think the people should watch the play and possibly then get back and tell what they felt about it.
Absolutely. I think also, Bala, even though it's the story of a dancer, I think so many of us as artists and as organizers and as people who work in this space can also, you know, empathize and resonate with it. And I think, like you rightly said, it's also the possibility of us to think and introspect and deliberate upon these very, very important issues and see what can we do to change, right? I think like individual change constitutes to collective change. So I think that if 10 of us start saying no, I think change can automatically happen. So I think you've put out a play that really, you know, forces us to think beyond the 1 hour 29 minutes that we spend watching it. So thank you for that. And I just want to tell everybody that the play is available for, we will share a link on Alap's page as well. And the play is available to watch on a brand new platform called Eventscape. It's very, very easy to use, and I'd love for all of you to watch this, and please go ahead and give Bala and Theatre Nisha, you know, share feedback with them. Bala, thank you so much for, you know, talking to me about this play. And, you know, I somehow feel that after I watch it, talking to you has only made me think some more. So, and I think these are important discussions that must be had. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Akila, for having me here.
Most welcome. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You too, bye.